Alright, let's talk about something that's been keeping me up at night. Why does Thor, a literal god of thunder, have me laughing harder than Loki's prank calls on a Tuesday, while Ant-Man's jokes sometimes feel like they shrank in the dryer? Is it the pure absurdity of it all? Thor's out here dropping one-liners that could make Shakespeare turn in his grave. Meanwhile, Ant-Man's like, hey, look at me, I'm small. Yeah, Scott, we get it. You're tiny and your pants are too big. Hilarious. Honestly, I'm starting to think this is some kind of cosmic test. Like, the universe is asking, can mere mortals truly appreciate the comedic genius of a god? Or are we all just too easily amused by a guy who talks to ants? Is this the bar? In this video, we're diving deep into the sometimes hilarious, sometimes I'll just pretend to laugh world of MCU comedy. We'll pick apart Thor's thunderous wit, dissect Ant-Man's shrinking punchlines, and maybe even uncover what truly makes us laugh. Alright, let's talk about Thor, the one, the only, the god of thunder. Picture this, a brooding, thunder-brooding legend dropped into modern-day Earth. The man's clueless. He's trying to order a pizza, confused by the concept of extra cheese, and convinced that streaming involves actual streams. Pure comedy gold. Then comes Ragnarok, and Taika Waititi basically said, hold my beer. Suddenly, Thor's not just a god, he's a meme waiting to happen. He's lost his hammer. His hair, and his dignity, but somehow he's gained a comedic timing that could rival Loki himself. Now, let's talk about Ant-Man, our pint-sized hero. Scott Lang, the guy who can shrink to the size of an insect, is naturally funny, right? He's the underdog, the witty, street-smart guy who can talk his way out of any situation. And initially he was. He was the perfect blend of humor and heart. But here's the thing, repetition is the enemy of laughter. It's like watching the same sitcom episode on repeat. You get the jokes, you know the punchlines, and eventually you start tuning out. And that's kind of what happened with Ant-Man. His humor started to feel a bit predictable, like a well-worn joke that's lost its sparkle. So what's the secret ingredient? Is it the writing, the acting, or maybe it's just that some superheroes are born funny and others, well, they're still learning the ropes. Characterization and contextual humor. So why does Thor make us laugh just by being Thor? Well, it's because the dude is literally a god. With his giant muscles, royal swagger, and total I'm from another universe vibe, Thor stands out like a walking, talking Greek myth, except he's totally clueless about Earth's rules. Enter the laughs.
This drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another!
Watching him stumble through Earth customs, like not understanding slang or trying to use a smartphone, makes his godly perspective look hilariously out of touch. Remember when he meets Doctor Strange in Thor, Ragnarok, and nearly faceplants into the Bifrost? Thor's all serious, and the situation is just absurd. That mix of high-stakes godliness and innocent confusion. Pure comedy gold. Thor doesn't even need punchlines. His reactions to normal stuff are funny enough to make us burst out laughing. Now, flip the script to Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man. His humor is way more grounded because, well, he's just a guy trying to juggle being a dad and a hero, not to mention his past as an ex-con. His jokes come from trying to laugh off his personal chaos, like when he shrinks down to the size of an actual bug. Hilarious, right? But while Scott's quips can land, sometimes they feel like he's trying a little too hard. Sure, his humor's relatable, but it doesn't have that extra "what is even happening right now" magic that makes Thor's moments unforgettable. Alright, let's dive into why Thor's humor works so well. It's all about timing, baby. Thor's jokes are like a well-choreographed dance of awkward pauses, misreads, and perfectly timed deadpans. Seriously, the guy knows how to land a line, whether he's casually dropping "is he though" in Avengers, Infinity War, or hitting us with a philosophical gem like "I choose to run towards my problems" in Thor. Ragnarok, Thor's comedic timing is like a fine-tuned instrument, one that's tuned to awkward godly perfection. Even when he repeats the same "I have no idea what's going on" vibe, it still feels fresh. It's like watching a toddler try to use a fork for the first time. Endearing, funny, and totally unintentional genius. Now, let's talk about Ant-Man. Paul Rudd is, without a doubt, the charm king. But sometimes, Scott's humor feels a little too much like a nervous tick. It's like he's trying to out-quip everyone in the room. And while that's funny in some moments, other times it's like watching a guy tell jokes at a funeral. Take the car chase scene in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Scott's dropping one-liners like it's a stand-up routine, but it's honestly messing with the tension. It's like he's using jokes as a shield instead of just letting the moment breathe. Dude, not everything needs a punchline. It's okay to just exist in the chaos for a second. Let's talk about Thor's secret weapon, his wildly entertaining supporting cast. First up, Loki, Thor's brother, arch nemesis, and overall biggest headache. Loki's sarcastic, manipulative vibes are chef's kiss to Thor's wholesome, "I'm just trying to save the world" energy. Their banter in Thor, Ragnarok, is comedy gold. Thor's earnestness meets Loki's snark, and it's like watching a golden retriever trying to have a conversation with a cat. Pure comedic magic. And then there's Hulk, who Thor treats like a giant toddler who can smash things when he's mad, but needs snacks and naps otherwise. Watching Thor babysit Hulk? Hilarious. These relationships aren't just funny, they're like family therapy with explosions. It's awkward, it's chaotic, but it's also heartwarming in the weirdest way. Now let's slide over to Ant-Man's crew. Sure, Scott's got Hope and Hank to bounce off of, but the humor doesn't exactly pop like Thor's family circus. Their jokes are like, okay, that was cute, rather than, I'm laughing so hard, I'm crying. In Ant-Man and the Wasp, Scott and Hope have their own little back and forths, but it's more like, hey, we're in a scene together, let's joke around, rather than the kind of tension-filled comedy we get with Thor's gods and green rage monsters. Ant-Man's humor feels like a fun time with your buddies, but Thor's humor? It's like an emotional roller coaster with your dysfunctional family that somehow ends with everyone hugging it out, after a few explosions, of course. Let's talk about Thor's humor evolution, because this guy levels up. In the beginning, Thor's like that one friend who's so out of touch with Earth, he thinks Netflix and chill is an actual workout. His humor is all about him not getting human culture, like when he drops "I choose to run towards my problems" with a totally serious face, but then bam, Thor. Ragnarok happens, and suddenly he's owning his flaws like a champ. By the time Avengers Endgame rolls around, he's making jokes about himself, and we're like, Thor, you magnificent mess, we love you. The difference, he's no longer the god everyone laughs at. He's the god everyone laughs with. Thor's comedic glow-up is real, and it's 100% hilarious. Now, Ant-Man's humor. Let's just say he's the comedy equivalent of a one-hit wonder. Scott Lang cracks the same jokes across every movie. He's like the guy who keeps telling you the same story at every party, and you're like, yup, we know Scott, you're awkward and lovable. But there's no real change, no growth. He's still dropping dad jokes, even when there's no dad around to listen. Sure, it fits his character, but after a while, it's like, hey Scott, can we get some new material? His humor stays stuck in neutral, while Thor's got a full character arc that just keeps getting funnier. So when you take into account the full package, growth, timing, and how they've evolved, it's clear. Thor's humor is like a fine wine that only gets better with age, while Ant-Man's is more like a bowl of chips. Still good, but you can't help but wish for something more. Analysis and comparison. Alright, let's look into what makes Thor's humor the life of the party. While Ant-Man sometimes feels like that one guy who insists on telling the same joke over and over, even though it wasn't that funny the first time. Thor's humor, the Swiss Army knife of comedy. The dude can land a laugh whether he's battling gods or sitting in a hot tub contemplating life. Take Thor, Ragnarok. The humor was as bold and wild as a unicorn on a sugar rush, totally matching the film's chaotic, colorful vibe. But then, in Avengers Endgame, when things get emotional, hello tears. Thor nails it with his Lebowski Thor act. Sure, it's hilarious, but it also fits his grief and self-doubt. It's like he's telling you a joke while giving you a big cosmic hug. Comedy and emotional depth, Thor's comedy is like a chameleon that can blend into any situation and still slay. Ant-Man, well, bless his heart, but his humor is like that one joke that's funny the first time, but by the 100th time, you're like, Scott, please, for the love of all things funny, do something new. It works when things are light and breezy. We love a good shrinking to an ant gag. But when Quantumania asks for something a bit more serious, Scott's quips come crashing in like a clown at a funeral. The jokes just don't fit the vibe. They're like trying to wear flip-flops to a wedding. It's fun at first, but eventually you're like, really, Scott? Again? So yeah, Thor's got the range. His humor bends and flexes like a comedy gymnast, while Ant-Man's humor sometimes feels like he's still stuck in his stand-up routine from 2015. Thor is basically that friend who's incredibly powerful, but still somehow super relatable. I mean, he's a literal god, but when he's awkwardly bragging about how he killed Thanos, or side-eyeing Captain America for lifting Mjolnir in Endgame, we're like, hey, me too, buddy. We've all had that moment where we thought we were doing great, and then, oh, Captain America did that? Great, awesome. Thor's humor hits home because at the end of the day, he's just trying to figure himself out, like us, and that's why we love him. Ant-Man though, oh, Scott Lang, bless his heart. He's the guy who always gets picked last in the superhero squad draft, and his humor starts off cute, like who doesn't love an underdog? But after a while it's like, okay Scott, we get it, you're confused about quantum physics. Dude, I'm just trying to follow the plot here. At first we chuckle at his everyman struggles, but after a few too many I'm lost jokes, it feels more like a comedy rerun. Instead of mixing it up, Scott sticks to his go-to shtick like a broken record. So where's the depth, Scott? Where's the growth? Alright, grab your popcorn because it's about to get risky. We're talking about the comedy chops of Thor versus Ant-Man, and trust me, one of them is out here swinging for the fences while the other is over here playing it safe like it's Monopoly night at Grandma's house. Thor's humor, bold. We're talking risk-taking to the max. Under Taika Waititi's guidance, Thor went from mighty god of thunder to mighty god of doing the chicken dance in front of his enemies. And you know what? It worked. If you told me Thor would argue with a rock monster about Wi-Fi passwords in Ragnarok, I would have laughed in your face. Yet here we are, still quoting it. Then there's his emotional breakdown in Endgame. Who knew Thor would have a mental health crisis that would make us cry and laugh at the same time? That's the beauty of it. It's risky, it's unpredictable, and it's hilarious. Chris Hemsworth just nails it with his comedic timing, and those bold choices leave us with moments that feel fresh instead of recycled. You don't expect Thor to be cracking Wi-Fi jokes 1 second and having a midlife crisis about his worth the next, but you love it. Ant-Man's humor, oh boy, it's like that one friend who tells the same dad joke at every party, even though everyone has heard it 43 times, and we're all just silently praying for something new. You know the one. Hey, wanna hear a joke? No. Too bad. And it's always the same tired, why did the chicken cross the road? Gag. At first you're like, aw, that's cute, Scott. You've got a friend who talks a million miles a minute and somehow knows exactly how to make everything sound hilarious. But after the 87th time hearing about Luis fast-talking recaps, you start eye-rolling harder than a librarian with a bad penmanship. So what's the deal here? Thor's humor is like a buffet of evolution. It changes, it grows, and it surprises you. From epic boasting to emotional breakdowns, Thor's comedy is tied to his journey, making him relatable and fun no matter the cosmic chaos. His jokes are fresh, bold, and they land because they're tied to his growth as a character. Ant-Man though, it's like your favorite comfort food. Charming at first, but after the 20th serving, it's starting to get a little meh. Scott Lang's average guy in a superhero suit shtick is cute, but his humor could use some new seasoning. The jokes are predictable, and without some evolution, they start to feel like deja vu. But hey, Ant-Man can still be funny, he just needs to step out of his comfort zone and get a little risky like Thor. Humor is not just about the punchline, it's about how that punchline grows with the character. Thor's got it locked, while Ant-Man's still figuring it out. So what do you think? Are you team I'm throwing my jokes into the cosmic unknown, Thor, or team I'll just stick with the classic dad jokes and hope no one notices, Ant-Man?